The night felt heavier than usual. A damp, cold wind rustled through the empty corridors of Black Ridge University, a prestigious but aged institution tucked away in the forests of Vermont. The campus had always carried whispers of something unnatural, stories passed down from students who swore they saw things in the shadows, things that shouldn't be there. Most of them were just stories. November 3rd, 2023. A date that would soon become infamous. Ryan Carter, a final-year psychology student, had always been obsessed with the idea of fear, what caused it, how the human brain processed it, and most importantly, how far it could be pushed. He had been planning an experiment for months. A simple concept, really. He and 3 other students would spend the night inside Holloway Hall. The abandoned wing of the university had been closed off for nearly 40 years. No one talked about why it was closed. Some said a student went missing inside and the university covered it up. Others believed something far worse happened. But Ryan wasn't the type to believe in ghost stories. He was here for science. The rules of the experiment were simple. Each of them would spend an hour alone in different rooms of Holloway Hall. No phones, no lights, just them, a notebook, and a camera to document any anomalies they experienced. At exactly 3:33 a.m., they would regroup in the main lecture hall and compare their findings. No matter what happened, no one was allowed to leave early. They had no idea what they had just signed up for. At 12:47 a.m., Ryan, Natalie, Ethan, and Sarah stepped through the rusted double doors of Holloway Hall. The air inside was thick, heavy with the scent of old paper and something else. Something rotten. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally against the cracked tiled floors. "This place feels wrong," Sarah muttered, pulling her jacket tighter around her. Ethan scoffed. "It's just an old building. You guys are letting your imaginations mess with you." Ryan didn't respond. He was too busy setting up his equipment. The hallway stretched endlessly in both directions, the flickering emergency lights casting strange, elongated shadows. They split up. Ryan took room 202, an old lecture hall that still had chairs stacked in the corners. Natalie went to room 109, a former chemistry lab, the tables still covered in broken glass and rusted instruments. Ethan claimed room 303, an old professor's office that reeked of mildew. And Sarah, she took room 407, the farthest room down the hall. 1:15 a.m. Ryan sat in total silence, the only sound being the rhythmic ticking of his wristwatch. He stared at the camera on the table, its red light blinking steadily. Then, something changed. The air around him grew impossibly cold. Not like the regular chill of an old building. This was something else. A biting, suffocating cold that crawled under his skin. His breath became visible. The door to room 202 creaked. Not open, not closed, just shifted. Ryan leaned forward. "Hello?" Silence. He grabbed his notebook, scribbling down the experience, trying to keep his breathing steady. Then the scratching began. A slow, deliberate sound coming from beneath the desk in front of him. His fingers tightened around the pen. It sounded like nails dragging across wood. No, not nails. Something sharper. He reached for his phone instinctively, then remembered. No phones. That was the rule. Ryan exhaled sharply. "It's just my brain playing tricks," he whispered to himself. "This is exactly why I wanted to do this experiment. Fear is just..." Knock. A single, sharp knock on the window. His head snapped up. The window was on the 2nd floor. Something outside was looking in. He could feel it. The shadows beyond the glass seemed wrong, moving when they shouldn't, stretching, bending. Then, the power cut out. Total darkness. A sound filled the air. A low, distorted whisper. "He doesn't belong here." Ryan's pulse slammed against his ribs. His hand fumbled for his camera, but the red light was gone. Dead. A whisper came again, closer this time. "Leave." Then the desk in front of him dragged itself across the floor. Ryan was on his feet in an instant, his back pressing against the wall. He wasn't alone in the room. He couldn't see it, but he could feel it. Then, a scream. Sarah. 2:47 a.m. Ryan, Natalie, and Ethan stood in the hallway outside room 407, gasping for breath. Sarah was gone. Her notebook lay open on the floor, scribbled frantically across the pages, over and over. "It sees me. It knows my name. It's smiling." The three of them stared at the words in horror. "This isn't right," Natalie whispered. "We have to go. Now." Ryan shook his head. "No, we wait until 3:33. That's the rule." Ethan grabbed him by the collar. "Are you out of your fucking mind? Sarah is gone. We have to find her." The hallway groaned. A light flickered at the end of the corridor. They weren't alone. A figure stood in the darkness, tall, twisted, its limbs too long, its face wrong. Then it took a step forward, and all the doors in the hallway slammed shut. The emergency lights buzzed, flickering wildly, and from somewhere deep inside Holloway Hall, a voice echoed, distorted, layered, and not human. 3 must stay. 1 may leave." The figure took another step forward. The air grew thick with the scent of rotting flesh. Ryan, Natalie, and Ethan backed away, but the hallway stretched. The doors disappeared. The floor beneath them rippled. Natalie sobbed. "We're not leaving, are we?" Ryan's breath came in shallow gasps. The clock on the hallway wall flickered. 3:32 a.m. The figure grinned, teeth too sharp, mouth too wide. And then, the clock ticked forward. 3:33 a.m. The world blinked. Ryan opened his eyes. He was standing outside Holloway Hall, alone. His watch read 3:34 a.m. His hands trembled as he turned to look at the building. The doors were chained shut, rusted like they had been for decades. He took a step forward, and a whisper tickled his ear. 3 must stay. His blood ran cold. He turned. Natalie, Ethan, and Sarah were watching him from the second-floor window. Their eyes were hollow, their mouths stretched in silent screams. And behind them, the figure grinned. The doors of Holloway Hall slammed shut, and the university remained silent, as if nothing had ever happened.